Hi, you guys. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for your, you know, business with the Christmas kits and also the book sale. That was awesome. I'm going to leave those videos up for a couple more days just in case I get, more people wanting to buy some of those book bundles. There's still quite a few left. I would say, there's some available on every one of the videos. There's 6 videos. So just check in the description to see which ones are available. And I'm sorry that I didn't do them in order, but anyway, so just take a look and see what's still there. Yeah, because I'm going to take those videos down probably Tuesday. Okay. And anybody who placed an order last week or, the kits and books and stuff, the Etsy orders are shipping out tomorrow, just FYI. And then the kits probably Tuesday, I'll get those done. And then I'm going to start on the book orders on Tuesday, hopefully to ship out like Thursday. Okay. Maybe Wednesday. I don't know. But it depends on how many more orders I get coming in. I like to kind of do all that all at once. If I'm in shipping mode, I'm in shipping mode. I'm not in creating mode or whatever. Anyway, so here's what I was thinking. I would like to make some journals. And I recently got my hands on a ton of Reader's Digest that were actually in really good shape. So if you got one of the Christmas kits, you got a journal, a naked journal that was made with one of those covers. And all of the spines on those were in really good shape. Like these were stored in a good environment, like where it wasn't too dry or whatever, because they were all still nice and supple and flexible. So I actually gutted a whole bunch of other ones. I picked out a ton that I want to use, and I have some more that I'm going to be selling, and I haven't gutted those yet because I'm not sure if I want to offer them as covers or if, the whole book. But anyway, so what I thought I would do is kind of take you guys along on creating a series of journals, sort of start to finish. And, just saying it's kind of a commitment to do that. And I know that you guys appreciate it. And, it's just, I've done process videos and stuff like that, but I've never done anything where I've committed to really, bringing you guys on board with a whole series. And so I think that's what I'm going to try to do. And we'll just work with it. So anyway, start to begin with, what I do, and this is how I determine how many journals I'm going to make, is I prep covers. I make the covers. I always do my covers first. And I mean, it's a good place to start, right? So you know what size to make your pages and all that stuff. So I thought I would just do a kickoff video, super short, not real long, of how I actually gut the books and then get them ready to actually stitch signatures in. Okay. So, and I will do some where the spine stays intact, and then I will also show you how I deal with one where the spine came apart, because that happens a lot with these books. So I have a few that I pulled out where I think that they're going to stay together. And I will just pull them apart as we go. So first thing I do is I try to loosen up the book block from the spine just a little bit. I try to see if I'm going to be able to get this little gap right here. Okay, that's kind of important for this method of gutting these books. And then I sort of just apply some pressure, like right along here, and push the cover back just a tiny bit. I'm trying to create a little bit of a I'm trying to break the glue that's right here along this first page and the cover. Okay, so then you can do it where you set the book upright and start at the top, and just, you know, it's best to use a very sharp brand new blade when you're doing this. This one is not brand new, but it's not terrible. So then you can see where you're going to be cutting right between the book block and that cover. And you just, you know, take your time, go slow. You don't need to, doesn't need to be a fast, whoops, and the blade just fell out. Doesn't need to be fast. And that's how you're going to avoid cutting through the cover. Just take your time. And when I get to about halfway, I usually turn it over so it's easier for me to see what's going on. And then usually when you get to about the middle of the cover, there's a little bit of extra glue that they have applied to keep things together. So, you know, you just want to just work that off. See? There's a little bit of extra. See, that's where the extra glue is. It's like, I don't know why, but they do that. And then sometimes I'll just lay the book down and actually, you know, just slowly cut through that. You want to be careful that you're not cutting too deep into and coming out through the spine of the book. The other thing you can do is to actually unfold this, pull this back like that, and that kind of breaks that glue a little bit more. And then this is when you usually find out if the cover is going to stay intact, if the spine is going to stay on there. So you can hear it kind of cracking and stuff. So that, yeah, see, this one is not going to make it. And I won't even try to keep this together. I'm going to, yeah, see, if you just crack it like that, it's going to come apart. So you know that this one is a no-go as far as keeping that spine together. So there's that. And then, you know, a lot of people save these and they'll make like bookmarks out of them. I suppose I could probably reattach this if I wanted to. I just, you know, I'm not super attached to it, so I don't really worry about it. And then I always tear off this, that first and last page, the flyleaf pages. I usually don't bother with much of the book block. I have enough book pages that, you know, I just don't really need anymore. So these will go into the recycling. And yeah, sometimes I save a box of book blocks that I use to start my fire, you know. I mean, it's might as well. So let's try one more. This one feels to me like I can tell, like, if I bend this back, it's not really cracking or anything. So it seems to me like it's a little bit more flexible and it's a little bit softer. So I'm going to try to get this one off without cutting through the spine. You can see there's a layer of fabric in there too, so it's like, you know, book cloth. You just gotta kind of take your time and be patient, you know. And just kind of work it, and maybe, you know, sometimes I'll take like a ruler and stick it down in there, and that really helps to separate the book block, the spine, from the you know, the back, the end of the pages from the spine. Yeah, okay, so yeah, see, sometimes it's kind of a struggle. This one is really tight, so it seems like this book was probably not read that much. Okay, so that's that side, and then I'm gonna if my blade was sharper, that would have gone through a lot easier. Okay, so that came off really nicely, and yeah, and this one is in good shape. Like I can, you know, if you wiggle it around, it's sturdy, you know, and it's still soft and flexible. So that's what you want. You want to make sure that, you know, it's gonna it's gonna stand up to opening and closing a million times. So I keep these just because it irritates me. I usually trim that torn edge off right away. I just like to use these in the book because, first of all, you get a little book plate with every Reader's Digest that you can use. But it also kind of identifies these as Reader's Digest, I think, because people just recognize that. And, okay, so we'll work on these two and try to get them both so that we, you know, to the point where they're ready to have pages stitched in or signature stitched in. So you can see this little like edge where it's just paper. So I like to kind of trim that off. If I've lost the cover or lost the spine, I like to just trim that as flush as I can. So a lot of people like to make these into ring-bound journals when they've lost the spine. I personally, I don't like doing ring-bound journals that much. I've done them and I will do them, but they're not my favorite. So, okay, so this one's ready to work with. So this one, sometimes you get this edge where there's like a ton of like glue and stuff that is sticking up on there. And this one's not too bad, but I like to sort of trim off some of that excess glue that's sometimes right in that area. So this is just a really, really simple way of prepping covers. Okay, so the intention with this method is to actually stitch through the spine. Okay, so you're going to see the string on the outside of the book. This is probably not, I don't know, I might do this if I was doing it a hidden spine similar to this, but I probably would use a thinner fabric. So anyway, so that's how these are going to be, is where you're going to see this, the threads on the outside of the book. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. So I honestly, I use this Scotch Create glue when I'm making these spines. I used to use hot glue, but I started using this, you know, a while back, and I really, really like it. This is really good glue, you guys. I like Fabri-Tac. I don't have anything against Fabri-Tac, and I do use it on these, but this is so easy, and it's really reliable, and it's like really secure. It's really good glue. So so on this one, basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to just glue some fabric on here, and then it's pretty much ready. So I like to use some kind of heavier fabric, like canvas, or, you know, something that's got some substance. And I usually like to have at least an inch on each side that extends out past the spine. And I like to have the edges torn. So I just kind of eyeball that, and then I'm going to tear it. This fabric right here, you know what this is, you guys? This is a drop cloth that I got at like Home Depot. So it's already kind of like an off-white color, which is cool. And it does tear. You need to have kind of a decent amount on each side that you're tearing. But yeah, and it frays really cool. So, and you get a ton of fabric for the amount that you spend. I mean, I think see, it's not going to work. You need to have more fabric on both sides. So I'm just going to leave this edge the way it is. There we go. So if I was tearing, there's a warp and weft is the direction of the fibers, right? So there's the warp, which is the up and down fibers, and then the weft, which is the across. I think that's what it is anyways. So when you're tearing one direction, the up and down direction, it's a lot easier to tear versus the sideways direction. So anyway, and that's kind of hard to tell once you have the fabric already torn and stuff. But anyways, so I cut this a little bit longer. I'm actually going to tear it, but I make sure that it's a little bit longer than my cover, just because I might trim it off later, or I might not. I might just fray it a little bit or whatever. This side, I'll probably pull some of these threads just to give it some. That's why I wanted to tear it, but it wasn't cooperating. So I'll just pull some of these threads off. You can do more later too, but yeah, so that is basically all I'm going to do to prep this cover. And that, well, that's not all I'm going to do, but that's the most basic part of it. And if this is all I did, it would still work. But I'm going to actually do some stitching on this with my sewing machine. So I don't know how to explain it, but if you guys ever get a chance, pick up some of this glue and try it, because it's awesome. It really is. And it dries pretty fast too. So I'm just laying that fabric on there. I'm not measuring anything, or I'm just working it into that gap. And then just kind of press it down along where I've got that glue. Then I am going to take Fabri-Tac, and I'm going to run a bead of Fabri-Tac down each side to glue that down. I'm not going to do it right this minute though. Okay, so that's basically how these are. And then what I like to do is, while that glue is drying, I sort of take the spine and just kind of work it into a little bit of a curve. The edge of my desk is curved. It's like an old school, like office desk, you know. So the edge of it is curved, is like rounded. So if I take this cover and just press it along the edge of my desk, I get a nice little rounded spine. So as it's drying, it'll stay in that little bit of a curved shape. Okay. So now this one. So these you can do a few different ways. I personally like to add some paper, and I don't use chipboard anymore. If I'm doing a curved spine, obviously I would use chipboard, but I'm not. I'm just going to use paper, and this is going to be a relatively soft spine. It's not going to be real stiff. Okay, so I thought I would use some file folder paper since a lot of us have these already. And it's nice, thick paper that, you know, needs to get used. It needs to get repurposed, and what better way to do that, right? Okay. So I'm just going to cut this. I don't need both halves. So I just want this for the paper, okay? So I'll measure the length of this. So I want it to be just a slightly bit shorter than the actual cover, like maybe 1/8 of an inch, not much. So I want to cut this to 7 3/8 of an inch, okay? And I'm going to cut this scored part off. Well, first I want to square this up and make sure that this is straight. Okay, so 7 3/8 is our height. Okay. And then I want the spine to be about the same as the rest of these books. So I'm going to make it 1 3/4 inches. Okay. So if I want it 1 3/4 inches, I still want to have some like excess on the edges here so that I can actually glue this paper to the cover. So I'm going to just go ahead and make it like, oh, if it's 1 3/4 inches, I'm going to just go ahead and make it like 3 inches. Okay. So that should give me plenty. Now I'm going to make it 3.5 inches. Yeah, 3.5 is better. And I'm going to use 2 layers of this paper. Because one is going to be on the outside and one's going to be on the inside. All right, so I'm going to sort of eyeball this. I hardly ever measure anything, right? Okay, so important to make sure that this is upright. So I'm going to sort of use this as my guide. And I'm using this glue, the Scotch Create glue stick. And I'm going to line this up with that on this one side. Yeah, because if we want 1 3/8 inches, yeah, that's going to be good. 1 3/8 inches, that's going to be perfect. So then I'll just apply some glue on this side. So the thing about, you know, when the spine doesn't hold together, that kind of sucks, is that you lose this little decorative part of the spine, or of the cover. That it's usually got some kind of like metallic sort of look, you know. Okay, so just applying that, and I'm making sure that my little bit of a gap, or my little bit of a excess, is the same on both sides. So see how it's a little bit shorter than the cover? I did that. I wanted it like that. Just saying. Okay, so there's the back, or actually the front, and there's the inside. So this one is going to just go here, but I'm actually going to be pushing it down into that gap. And then we're going to also apply fabric to it. So I'm just going to put some glue down in here. And this is also going to get stitched on the sewing machine. Yeah. And then on both sides of the cover. And then I'm going to use my bone folder, and I'm going to hold this real steady and just run it along like that. I actually like to use the side of the bone folder. Push this one down. Being careful not to push the front part off. Okay. And then I'm just going to flatten that onto the cover. You know, you could probably score this ahead of time if you wanted to, and you know, maybe that would make life a little easier. I don't know, but I just do it like this because it seems just as easy to me. Okay, so that's got to dry, and I am gonna work this up before the glue is totally dry. And I'm pressing down on the cover here because I don't want this paper to pull away as I'm bending it. So I'm just kind of creating a new this. Okay, so whoops, if that, so that's kind of, I'm pulling, this paper is pulling a little bit, so that's why this is lifting just a tiny bit. And that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I get my little like score in there. And then I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. I'm going to roll it on the edge of my desk. So I get a tiny bit of a curve on there. And then I'm just going to let this dry. The more you try to bend this, it's going to pull away. So, this is going to get covered up too. So it doesn't, the color of the paper doesn't necessarily matter to me. It's going to get covered with fabric, and it's also going to get stitched. I know that sounds crazy, huh? Okay. So back to this one. So normally I would be doing like a dozen or, 20 or something. So it's weird to me to just be doing like 2 covers, but so what I'll be doing as I go through this series is I will be creating probably, I don't know, I've got a lot of covers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'll probably be doing 16 of these, maybe 18. I don't know. Okay, so I want to tack this down. Fabric tack. I'm just there we go. I'm not going all the way out to the edge. I'm just so it never lifts. That's all. Okay. Let me grab my sewing machine. I know this seems crazy, probably. But it does fit in there. Reader's Digest covers do fit inside the, you know, the expanse in there. Okay, so I want to stitch on the outside of the cover, and I'm just going to use the book board as my guide. So I've got just like a standard presser foot on here. Okay, it's just a standard foot. So the edge of that foot is gonna go right along that book board. Okay, whoops. My machine came unthreaded. 1 second. I love this automatic threader. Okay. I think it would be cool to use like a white thread on this, but that's not what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to be doing a zigzag, and I want it to be a somewhat wide zigzag. So I'm just going to leave it on the, like, you know, standard setting that it has. So it's 1.4 is the length of the stitch and 3.5 is the width. So, and then just stitch along. I have to pull this forward, otherwise the book is going to run into this little shelf behind behind the sewing machine. Okay, right to the edge. Oops, glue fell over. And then I'm going to stitch right along the top. Up to the board. And then again, down the other side. And then across the bottom. Okay, cool. So then I would proceed to do the other 16 or 18 or however many. Okay, so that is basically the cover, you know, and then it's gonna be great. It'll be nice and sturdy. This fabric is totally gonna make this durable. The stitching, I think, adds some strength to the spine. It also, I think, kind of gives it a cool look, and it makes it look like it's altered, you know. So if this was sitting on a bookshelf, it would look like, wow, interesting. I mean, you could even do things like add some stitching on these or whatever if you wanted to. That might be kind of cool. So yeah, and then I'll probably trim this down later and maybe fray these a little bit more, you know, and just kind of work on grunging it up just a tiny bit. So, and then I'm going to add an eyelet, but I usually do that, you know, when I'm done working on the journals, but I'll be adding an eyelet here. And then depending on what kind of closure I do, I'll probably do one through the front and maybe the back. So, okay, so let's look at this guy. Let's see. All right, so we're going to do fabric now to cover this and this. And I'm going to use this, this is actually a feed sack. Oh, a grain sack, feed sack, whatever you want to call it. So I want to make sure that it's wide enough to cover that completely. So I'm going to actually cut it right there, and then tear it. Okay. So I need this to be twice the height of my book because it's going to wrap around the front and the back. Okay. So I just measured it, eyeballed it, and then I'm going to trim it, or I'm going to tear it just a little bit longer than what I need. This stuff is hard to tear. Okay. Normally I use craft paper when I'm doing this, like a lighter weight craft paper, and I never get that where it lifts up. I'm not sure why it's doing that with the pressure. When I'm bending the cover a little bit, it wants to lift up right here, but it's gonna stay. It's just that I have to quit pulling on it. So okay. I could use the Fabri-Tac too. If you're more comfortable using that, then use that. All right, so I'm gonna start on the outside, and I want this to be on the front, this stripe to be on the front. Again, I'm using that craft, or that Scotch Create glue. I'm going to extend it just a little bit out onto the book cover. I'm being pretty generous with it. You could use other glue too. I mean, you could totally use Aleene's tacky glue or something like that, you know. It's just what I like to use. And it's so neat. Like it just doesn't make a mess. That's one thing I like about using a glue stick. Okay, and then I save this glue for things like this where I really need to rely on it because it's not cheap. It's probably about the same cost as using Fabri-Tac or Fabrifix or Fabri-Tac or any of those. Actually, it's probably, Fabri-Tac is probably cheaper because these are about $4.50 a piece. So anyways, but I get them on Amazon for like $12 for a 4-pack. And sometimes they have like damaged packaging ones. So I'll get those because they mark them down. It's just the, you know, just the packaging is damaged. So, okay. So then I'm just going to make sure that my paper is folding and not pulling away. You guys see? I hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay. There we go. Easy, huh? And then I'm going to add my stitching. Okay. So let me grab the machine again. I think I might do a little bit thinner, a little bit narrower zigzag this time, and maybe a little bit longer stitch. Yeah. Okay, so go. Whoops. You have to guide it. You definitely have to push it now and then, otherwise it will sometimes just get stuck. All right. So because of the thickness of the fabric, this winds up being a little bit narrower. I probably should have made that like 2 inches in, you know, for the spine. I probably should have made that 2 inches, but that's okay. It's going to have 3 signatures, but yeah. So anyway, I think, you know, I think it's kind of cute. I like it. I love this, you know, this vintage like feed sack fabric. It's pretty cool, but you can use any kind of fabric you want. If you're just going to use like just like a, you know, quilting fabric or something, like just plain cotton, you know, fabric, I would maybe use 2 layers if you're doing it like this. Or the other thing you could do is just use fabric. Like you don't have to use the paper. You could just use fabric. If you're going to use just fabric, maybe like a canvas type of fabric, like a heavy canvas, and then cover that with, you know, use the glue and everything, and then cover that with your decorative fabric, you know. Anyway, so yeah, so that's my covers. So this is obviously longer than I need it to be. I'll probably use the pinking shears and cut that off. And I don't know, I might wind up using like some cheesecloth or something like that in there too. Who knows? And like this string, I'm leaving that. That can stay. It's okay. I like it. All right, so we've got a couple of covers prepped, and now I'm inspired to make a whole bunch. Okay, so that's just my basic, you know, how to get your Reader's Digest cover ready for stitching in signatures. So after this, I want to make some pockets. I definitely want to make pockets for the front cover and the back cover. And I'll probably wind up using policy envelopes for that. So that'll be cool. And then obviously, you know, I'm going to need to make tags and other kinds of embellishments, probably lots more pockets for inside the journal. Probably do like tabs and tickets and all kinds of stuff. So so this will just be a work in progress, and I'll keep moving forward, and as I move on to the next sort of step, I will do a video. Okay? All right, guys. Love you. Take care. See you soon.